The grand hall looked nothing like a place meant for a child like her. Tall lights shone from the ceiling. Soft music played in the background. Well-dressed guests filled the room with confident voices and polite laughter. Everything about the event felt expensive, important, and far away from her small world. The girl stood near the entrance. Holding the strap of her worn bag tightly, she did not belong here at least. That was how it felt. Her shoes were old. Her dress was simple and slightly faded. She had tried to clean it as best as she could, but it still looked out of place among the shiny suits and elegant gowns around. Her people walked past her without noticing. Some noticed and looked away. A few glanced at her with confusion. Wondering how she had entered such a place, she kept her head down and took a careful step forward. The event was a charity gathering hosted by a powerful company. Important guests had arrived to donate, speak, and celebrate success. A large stage stood at the front of the hall, and on it rested a beautiful grand piano. It was polished perfectly, black and shining, untouched. The piano caught her attention immediately. Her eyes stayed on it. Longer than anything else in the room, she had not planned to come here. Life had pushed her toward this place in a quiet, painful way. She lived in a small space with very little. Some days food was enough. Some days it was not. But music had always stayed with her. Even when everything else disappeared, especially the piano, she had played whenever she could. On broken keys, on old instruments, sometimes only in her imagination. Music was the one place where she felt safe. Near the center of the hall, a group of important guests stood laughing. Together, among them was a man everyone seemed to respect. He was confident, well-dressed. His voice carried authority even when he joked. People listened when he spoke. He was the CEO. Hosting the event, the girl did not know what a CEO truly meant. She only knew he was someone important. As the event continued, a host announced that guests were welcome to share talents or performances if they wished. Most people smiled politely. A few clapped. No one moved. The piano remained silent, the girl felt. Her heart beat faster. She took a small step forward, then another. Each step felt heavy. Her hand shook slightly as she raised her voice, barely loud enough to be heard. "Excuse me?" The nearby conversation stopped. A few people turned around. The host looked surprised. "Yes?" he asked gently. The girl swallowed. I can play the piano," she said quietly. The room fell silent for a brief moment, then came laughter. Not loud at first, just small chuckles. Whispers, smiles filled with doubt. Someone muttered, "Is she serious?" Another said softly, "Look at her." The host hesitated, unsure how to respond before he could say anything. The CEO laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was casual, confident, unthinking. Double quotes. "If she can really play," he said jokingly, "I'll adopt her." The room burst into louder laughter. Glasses, CLINKED. People smiled to them. It was harmless humor. The girl stood still. She heard the laughter. She understood the words, but she did not feel anger. She felt something else. A quiet determination. The host looked uncomfortable. "Well," he said carefully, "this is an unusual request." The CEO waved his hand casually. "Let her try," he said. "It will be entertaining." More laughter followed. The girl nodded. Double quotes. "Thank you," she said softly. No sarcasm. No pride, just gratitude. She walked slowly toward the stage. Each step echoed in the silent hall. People watched with curiosity now. Some expected a mistake. Some expected embarrassment. A few expected nothing at all. She reached the piano. It was bigger and more beautiful than any piano she had ever touched. She stood there for a moment, unsure if she was allowed to sit. Then she gently pulled the bench closer and sat down. Her feet barely touched the floor. She placed her hands in her lap, took a deep breath. The laughter had faded, not because people believed in her, but because they were waiting for the failure. She lifted her hands slowly and placed her fingers on the keys. They trembled at first, not from fear, but from emotion. It had been so long since she touched a piano like this before playing. She closed her eyes just for a moment. She remembered small rooms, cold nights, silent tears. She remembered music, carrying her through moments when nothing else could. Then she began. The first note filled the hall. Clear, soft, perfect. The room froze. The second note followed. Then the third. The piano was no longer silent. It was speaking. The girl played gently at first, a slow melody, simple but full of feeling. The laughter had completely stopped now. People leaned forward slightly, unsure of what they were hearing. The CEO's smile slowly faded. He did not realize it yet, but something inside him had shifted. The music grew stronger. The girl's fingers moved with confidence, not rushed, not forced. Every note felt intentional, as if the piano was not an instrument, but a voice. Whispers disappeared. No one spoke. The hall was filled only with sound. She played as if she had waited her whole life for this moment. Not to impress, not to prove anyone wrong, but to finally be heard. Some guests felt something strange in their chest, a tightness, warmth, memories they had not thought about in years. The host stood frozen. The staff stopped moving. The piano had taken control of the room. The CEO slowly straightened his posture. He was no longer amused. He was listening, really listening. The girl's music changed. It became deeper, more emotional. The notes carried pain, hope, and strength all together. It was not the kind of music learned from books. It was the kind learned from life. A woman near the front wiped her eyes quietly. A man swallowed hard and looked down. No one expected this from a child who looked so small and poor. The girl's face remained calm. Her eyes were closed. She was not thinking about the crowd. She was somewhere else, somewhere safe. The piano responded to her touch perfectly, as if it had been waiting for her. The CEO felt a strange feeling rise inside him, something close to shame. He remembered his words, his joke, and for the first time, they did not feel funny. The music reached a gentle pause. Not the end, just a breath. The girl's fingers hovered over the keys. The entire hall held its breath with her. She was about to continue, and no one knew that what came next would change everything. The pause felt endless. The girl's fingers hovered above the keys, still and quiet, as if listening to something only she could hear. The hall remained frozen with her. No one moved. No one coughed. No one whispered. Then she pressed the keys again. The sound returned. But it was different now, stronger, deeper. The melody grew like a story reaching its truth. It was no longer careful or shy. It flowed with confidence, as if the piano itself trusted her completely. Her hands moved faster. Not wildly, purposefully. Each note landed exactly where it needed to be. The music filled the room, climbing higher, then falling softly, like breath after tears. People did not realize it, but many had stopped breathing properly. The CEO leaned forward in his seat. His arms, once crossed in casual confidence, slowly relaxed. His eyes stayed fixed on the girl. He was not thinking about business, or status, or jokes. He was remembering things he had forgotten. A time when he was younger. A time before success hardened him. A time when feelings mattered more than appearances. The woman who had wiped her eyes earlier did not stop. Tears rolled down freely now. She did not try to hide them. Neither did others. Some stared at the floor, overwhelmed. Some watched the girl as if afraid she might disappear. The music became quiet again. So quiet it almost felt fragile. The girl's fingers slowed, the melody softened. It sounded like a question or a goodbye. Then came the final movement. It was not loud, not dramatic. It was gentle, honest, the kind of ending that does not demand applause. But understanding, her fingers pressed the last key. The sound faded, silence returned. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then someone stood up. Slowly, carefully. It was the CEO. He did not clap at first. He simply stood. His face had changed. The confident smile was gone. What remained was something more human than he clapped once, twice, then. Again, others followed. The hall erupted into applause, not loud. Laughter, not polite clapping, but real applause. Kind that comes from respect. The girl remained seated. Her hands rested in her lap. She did not bow. She did not smile. She simply opened her eyes. The applause continued. Some stood. Some nodded silently. Some wiped their faces again. The host walked toward the stage. Unsure what to say, before he could speak, the CEO raised his hand. The room quieted. He took a slow breath. I made a joke, he said. His voice was calm. But serious, I should not have. People shifted uncomfortably. The girl looked at him. Unsure, I laughed, he continued, because I did not see you. I only saw what I expected. He paused, but I was wrong. I turned fully toward the girl. What you just played. That was not practice, he said. That was life. The room stayed silent. He stepped closer to the stage. Where did you learn to play like that? He asked gently. The girl hesitated, then spoke quietly. I listened, she said, whenever I could, and I practiced when no one was watching. The CEO nodded slowly. Do you have a place to play? He asked. She shook her head. No, she said. Only sometimes. The word sometimes hung heavy in the air. The CEO looked away for a moment, then back at her. I said something earlier, he said. I said it lightly. Without thinking, he paused. But I don't want it to stay a joke. A ripple moved through the crowd. I don't know what the future holds, he continued. And I don't want to make promises in front of everyone. He looked at the girl. But I would like to help you, if you allow it. The girl did not answer immediately. She had learned not to trust words too easily. She looked at the piano instead. I don't need much, she said finally. Just time. And a place where music is allowed. The CEO smiled. Softly this time, that he said, can be arranged. The applause returned, but quieter now, more respectful. The host stepped forward again and officially ended the event. But no one rushed to leave. People gathered closer to the stage, not to praise, but to understand. Someone offered her water. She accepted politely. Someone asked if she would play again. She shook her head. Not today, she said. The piano had said enough. Later that evening, the hall emptied slowly. The lights dimmed. Staff cleaned quietly, but the feeling remained. The girl sat near the piano, waiting. She did not know what would happen next. She did not expect miracles. She had learned to live without them. The CEO returned, this time without an audience. He sat nearby. Not too close, not towering, just present. You played something important tonight, he said. She looked at him. I just played, she replied. He smiled. That's usually how important things happen. He did not ask about her past. He did not ask about pain. He asked about music, what she liked. What? She listened for what she felt when she played for the first time in a long while. Someone listened without trying to fix her. When it was time to leave, he stood. There are people who can help with lessons, he said, and places where you can play. He paused. And if you ever feel unsure, you can say no. She nodded. That mattered more than anything, as she walked out of the hall. The city lights felt different, not brighter, just softer. Days passed, then weeks. The girl practiced. In real rooms now, quiet. Rooms, safe rooms, pianos that stayed in tune. She still played the same way, with honesty, with memory, with hope that did not rush. The CEO did not become her savior. He did not replace her past. He simply kept a promise. Others noticed her too, not because of her story, but because of her sound. One afternoon, she sat alone at a piano. Sunlight touched the keys. She played gently, not for applause, not for approval, but because music was still her home. She remembered the laughter, the joke, the silence before the first note, and how everything changed without shouting, without anger, without force. Sometimes she smiled, not because life was easy, but because it finally felt possible. And somewhere, in a quiet hall, a piano waited.